If you're thinking about switching from Windows to Linux, there's probably one thing holding you back: the terminal. Maybe you've seen screenshots of people typing strange commands, or you've heard that Linux is only for programmers, and that you'll need to memorize hundreds of commands just to install software or to change a simple setting. To be honest, that reputation isn't completely made up. Years ago, using Linux often meant spending a lot of time inside the terminal. If you wanted to install an application, you usually opened a terminal. Similarly, if you wanted to update your system, again, you need the terminal. Even fixing simple hardware problems could sometimes require typing commands you barely understood. But things have changed a lot. Modern Linux distributions have become incredibly beginner-friendly. Today, you can browse the web, watch videos, install applications, update your system, connect to Wi-Fi, manage files, customize your desktop, and even troubleshoot many common problems without opening the terminal even once. Everything happens through clean graphical applications, just like Windows. So, if you've been avoiding Linux because you're worried about using the terminal, this video is for you. Today, I'm going to show you two Linux distributions that prove you don't need the terminal anymore. Both are beginner-friendly, both are polished, and both make switching from Windows far easier than most people expect. Let's start with the first one, Linux Mint. If someone asked me, what Linux distribution should I install first? Linux Mint is almost always my answer, and there's a very good reason for that. Linux Mint focuses on one simple goal: making Linux feel comfortable. Instead of forcing you to learn Linux-specific workflows, it gives you a desktop that already feels familiar. Especially if you're coming from Windows, the developers have spent years polishing the experience, removing unnecessary complexity, and making everyday tasks as simple as possible. One of Linux Mint's biggest strengths is its Cinnamon desktop environment. The moment you log in, you'll probably notice something familiar. There's a Start-style application menu in the bottom left corner, a taskbar along the bottom, a system tray showing your Wi-Fi, sound, battery, and clock. Instead of spending hours trying to learn a completely different interface, you can start using your computer almost immediately. That familiarity makes the transition from Windows much less intimidating. Another area where Linux Mint shines is software installation. Linux Mint includes an excellent software manager. You simply open the software manager, search for the application you want, click install, enter your password, and you're done. That's literally it. Whether you want to install Firefox, VLC Media Player, LibreOffice, or thousands of other applications, everything is only a few clicks away. It even supports Flatpak applications, giving you access to newer versions of many popular programs. Another thing many beginners worry about is system updates, especially if you're coming from Windows, where updates sometimes appear at the worst possible moment. Linux Mint handles updates very differently. Instead of forcing them on you, it simply notifies you when updates are available. You open the Update Manager, review the available updates, click Install, and let Linux Mint do the rest. The process is usually fast, straightforward, and far less disruptive. One feature I really appreciate is that Linux Mint tells you exactly what's being updated. Linux Mint also includes a collection of graphical tools that replace many common terminal commands. Need to install drivers? There's an application for that. Want to configure startup programs? There's an application for that. One of my favorite tools is TimeShift. Think of it as a restore point for your entire operating system. Before making major changes or installing large updates, you can create a system snapshot. And if something unexpected happens later, you can simply restore your system to the previous working state, all through a graphical interface. It's one of those features that gives beginners a lot more confidence. Performance is another area where Linux Mint really stands out. If you have an older laptop that struggles with Windows, there's a good chance Linux Mint will make it feel alive again. Applications launch faster, the system boots quicker, memory usage stays low, and everyday tasks feel much smoother. Many people install Linux Mint on computers they were about to throw away, only to end up using them for several more years. It's honestly impressive how much life Linux Mint can bring back to older hardware. And if your computer is particularly old, Linux Mint even offers lighter desktop editions like Mate and XFCE. They use fewer system resources while still keeping the same beginner-friendly experience. Another reason Linux Mint has become so popular is its stability. Nobody likes random crashes or updates that suddenly break everything. Linux Mint is built on Ubuntu's long-term support releases. That means extensive testing, long-term security updates, excellent hardware compatibility, and a system that's designed to be reliable. Once everything is set up, you can mostly forget about the operating system and focus on actually using your computer. Linux Mint isn't the only Linux distribution designed for beginners. Another great option is Zorin OS. While Linux Mint focuses on simplicity, Zorin OS emphasizes familiarity, modern design, and helping Windows users feel at home from the very first boot. One of Zorin OS's biggest strengths is its desktop layout. The application menu sits in the bottom left corner. Applications appear on the taskbar. Notifications live in a clean system tray. Settings are organized logically. Nothing feels confusing. Most first-time users can navigate the desktop without any guidance. That familiarity removes much of the anxiety of switching operating systems. Another standout feature is Zorin Appearance. Customizing a Linux desktop can sound intimidating. Often seems like something that requires configuration, files, or terminal commands. Thankfully, Zorin OS makes it simple. Open Zorin Appearance, and you can completely change your desktop with just a few clicks. You can also customize themes, icons, accent colors, panel positions, and more. Everything happens through simple menus. You can transform your entire desktop in under a minute. The software store is just as easy to use. Open it, search for an application, click install, and you're done. Whether you need office software, creative tools, communication apps, or games, everything is available through one clean interface. Another feature Windows users will appreciate is Windows App Support. Sometimes there's still that one Windows application you need. Maybe it's older software, a work application, or a utility without a Linux version. Normally, double-clicking an exe or MSI file won't do anything. Zorin handles this much more intelligently. When you open a Windows installer, it first checks whether a native Linux version is available. If there is, it recommends installing that instead, giving you better performance and better integration. If there isn't, Zorin can automatically set up the required compatibility layer. Instead of configuring Wine manually or searching through tutorials, everything happens through a graphical interface. For beginners, that removes one of the biggest barriers to switching from Windows. Performance is equally impressive like Linux Mint. Zorin OS runs well on modest hardware. If you're using an older laptop, you'll likely notice faster boot times, lower memory usage, better multitasking, and a more responsive system. You don't need high-end hardware to enjoy a smooth experience. What I like most about Zorin OS is how quickly Windows users feel comfortable. Switching operating systems can feel overwhelming. Zorin OS makes it familiar. Managing files, opening applications, changing settings, connecting USB drives. You spend less time learning the operating system and more time using it. If you want a modern desktop, easy customization, excellent Windows compatibility, and a polished experience out of the box, Zorin OS is one of the best choices available today. So, we've looked at Linux Mint, we've looked at Zorin OS. Both prove that modern Linux can be used comfortably without relying on the terminal. But if you had to choose one, which should you install? Both Linux Mint and Zorin OS are excellent for beginners. Both let you install software through graphical app stores. Both receive regular updates. Both include easy-to-use settings. And both show that you can use Linux without ever opening the terminal. The choice comes down to your priorities. If simplicity matters most, choose Linux Mint. Everything feels predictable. The desktop follows a traditional layout. Its tools are straightforward. And because Linux Mint has been around for so long, it has one of the largest communities in Linux. If you run into a problem, there's a good chance someone has already found the solution. Linux Mint is also an excellent choice for older computers. It runs efficiently, uses little memory, and even offers lighter editions like Mate and XFCE. If Windows feels slow, Linux Mint can make the same hardware feel fast again. On the other hand, if you value modern design, customization, and a desktop that feels almost identical to Windows, Zorin OS is probably the better fit. Its interface looks polished from the start. Zorin Appearance lets you customize the desktop in just a few clicks, and Windows App Support makes the transition even easier. If you're moving directly from Windows, Zorin OS does an excellent job of making you feel at home. Personally, I think both distributions have made Linux far more accessible. In the end, let me clear some things related to the terminal. The terminal is still there, and it's still a powerful tool. Many experienced users use it every day, not because they have to, but because it's often faster. That's the key difference. Today, the terminal is a choice, not a requirement. You can spend months, even years, using Linux without relying on it. And if you decide to learn a few commands later, you can do it at your own pace. If the terminal has kept you from trying Linux, hopefully, this video has shown how much things have changed. Both Linux Mint and Zorin OS offer polished, reliable, secure, beginner-friendly experiences. Try one on a spare computer or inside a virtual machine, and see how comfortable Linux really is. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which Linux distribution you'd recommend to someone switching from Windows. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.